Welcome to a quick tour of the U.S. Army Mobile Welding Equipment Shop Trailer. The key feature of our Mobile Welding Equipment Shop Trailer, which I'm not going to say that again throughout this video, is the Miller Trailblazer 302 diesel generator welder that is on board. With this power supply, we can do stick welding, MIG welding, TIG welding, as well as variants of each process therein. We have onboard argon tanks to support TIG welding up to 100% argon. We can do inner shield MIG as well as regular just gas shielded MIG welding. Right at the back of this trailer, one thing you'll notice is we do have a rod oven right next to the welder. Keep our 7018 nice and fresh, keep the moisture away. These two work lights run off on the onboard kind of grid that's set up, as well as toward the front, and I'll show you later, there are two 100-foot extension cord spools so that we can work, we're not tied to the trailer, we can work a little further away. And to go on with that, the cables, both power cables, are also on 100-foot spools, so we can pull this up as far as we can get into an area and then work out of this on, say, a structure or a vehicle that may need something put back together before it's recovered. At the front of the trailer, you'll notice we have our acetylene canister and our oxygen canister lays down inboard next to the welder. Off of that, we also have another 100-foot spool of acetylene and oxygen lines so that we can run torches or acetylene gas welding operations, also not tied directly to the trailer. As well as you can see, our giant argon tank lays on this side of the generator. On the right side of the welding trailer, we have various accessories and, most importantly, PPE. PPE, personal protective equipment, is very crucial to welding. Without a proper shaded mask or some sturdy gloves, welding can be very, very dangerous. In fact, welding without a mask will most certainly result in blindness, whether temporary or permanent, usually permanent. Also, up in here, we've got all sorts of tie downs, assorted tools, to maybe get panels off of whatever piece of equipment needs to be welded or repaired. There are some electric tools, and we've got drills and grinders. And then located underneath here, we've got tarps, obviously. Obviously, the Army doesn't always work in a nice clean shop, so we might be out in the mud, and you don't necessarily want to be standing in a pile of conductive substance while passing 100 amps through a rod of 7018. Not generally advisable. So we've got tarps, we've got all sorts of stuff, drop cloths. We've got some canvas mats to put down to avoid setting a light to the floor. We've also got some screenage we can hang up. Usually we drape this between trees that are close by and stuff, just to protect everybody else from our bright lights. Located up here is also where you'll find our 100-foot extension cords on spools, which are very nice if we got to go out to the piece of equipment and grind or clean up an area for welding. And right next to that is our 100-foot of argon hose. That way we can bring our MIG box out next to the site and weld, on whatever we need to do. Back here, we have a toolbox. Inside our toolbox, you'll see that everything is in foam inserts. Most things in the military exist in foam inserts. Inside here, you'll find various states of fluorinated and other exotic tungstens. This is a rather large tungsten. I don't know all over that. Also in here, you'll find cups and stuff for our TIG welders. Below that, we've got our wire brushes, files, and, important to any welding operation, sturdy C-clamps. Or down, we've got a small little sledgehammer. Our chipping hammer should be in here. You'll know if you weld that this always goes missing, and it's very, very important that it doesn't. So it's nice to have the ability to just look into this foam insert and know whether or not we got what we need. We also have some squares with levels, pliers. If you're MIG welding, pliers that can cut are very, very important. Little pry bars and such. But levels. If you're welding in high school, you need to learn how to use a level. It's very, very important. Having things square is crucial to your final product. Right under there we have our actual spool gun. This would be for aluminum MIG welding. If you've ever seen like those flat bottom John boats with a prop on the back, they're usually welded together with a spool gun. That would be, this is for like heavier gauge aluminum. If you're going with a lighter gauge aluminum, we bust out the TIG welder. We also have various regulators stored in and about here. Again, more PPE. Very important, we have respirator masks. These are, I think these are N95, so they're worth about $1,000 each right now. And then moving on from that, I'll take you to the other side so you can see our MIG box and our TIG box. Hello, welcome to the left side of the trailer. Here we have our MIG box stored on top of a little craftsman toolbox. But above here, kind of tucked up in here, you'll see these longer rod holders, these plastic rod holders. Up in here we have our like 6013 rod supplies for acetylene welding and brazing operations. Tucked in over here, there's a little bit of dead space, so there's a shop, light and a grinder up over there. Down here in this actual cut styrofoam protector again is where we keep regulators, so our acetylene and oxygen regulators. Open up the top drawer here, you'll see we have our torch set. So we have our torch body, our cutting assembly, as well as different heads and different welding tips for it. And a hacksaw, a very old Lennox hacksaw. Underneath there, we have possibly one of my favorite tools, an air hammer. That's for when things get real out of hand. Okay, if you need to remove a lot of slag very, very quickly, an air hammer will get you there. With the air hammer, you'll notice lots and lots of hearing protection. Very, very crucial. Also in here we have some solder paste, small spool of solder, as well as like an air nozzle. That stuff will work in conjunction with our onboard air compressor. Underneath there we have our MRO supplies. So we have our sanding discs. Very importantly, lots and lots of grinding wheels. When you make a mistake, this guy's your friend. It's kind of like the undo button on Microsoft Paint, which nobody uses anymore. Over here, MIG spools. Assorted types and varieties. We've got aluminum, we've got our regular MIG spools. In smaller quantities, we've got some different alloys. I think we even have some stainless MIG capability, which is always a little weird to get used to. Fire extinguisher tucked in there, safety first. Okay. Again, PPE, you'll find there is a auto darkening mask tucked up in here. We have our high frequency arc starter for TIG. This is a lifesaver. If you've ever tried scratch arc TIG, it's, I've welded a long time and I'm still not used to scratch arc. High frequency is great because you can apply some pedal pressure and it'll automatically create that arc across the air gap for you, get you started down the road. Here in these rod protectors, we keep things like our 7018, 6011, I think we got some 6010 in the back for those real tough route passes. Now you'll notice that this trailer is pintle towed, right? This is towed behind an LMTV, uses air brakes. Behind an LMTV, we can tow this pretty much anywhere the LMTV would go. Now let's get down to business. Now that we've shown you everything on the welding trailer, we'll get down to using the actual welder. My favorite process is stick welding, specifically with 7018. It's buttery smooth, lays a nice good bead. It's the one I always come back to. Unless I gotta do a route pass with 6011 or 6010, try to avoid it. This welder, you'll notice, we'll go over some controls in the front. Right up here, we have basically our kind of our pulse stiffness, right? So that'd be how aggressive the pulse is going to dig into the parent material. You see, we already have presets for 7018 and 6010, right? There's also all these other options for your TIG lift arc, which is like your scratch arc, right? With auto stop, and then TIG remote is how you kind of use it with the high frequency. And then down here we got our wire feeder using a remote wire or voltage sensing wire feeder, which this setting is actually extremely smooth on this machine, running both inner shield and regular MIG. Okay, so we're gonna go through a little bit of the startup procedure. You can see I've already laid some stuff out to get it ready ahead of time, but these machines are actually extremely simple. Kind of just turn it on, give it a little second, think and kind of get up. Now that I've shown you everything on the welding trailer, we're gonna go over my favorite process, stick welding, with the Miller Trailblazer 302 diesel. I really like this welder. I find that with the pulse adjustments, you can get a nice buttery smooth, clean arc and some real nice weld beads out of this machine. So you'll see we have settings all around this knob for your TIG lift arc, your TIG lift arc with auto stop, your TIG remote, your stick remote, your wire feeder using a remote, voltage sensing wire feeder. So basically using the remote means you plug one of the remotes into here. So if you were, say, 100 feet co-locate, away from this machine, you could turn on and off the hot lead. That way you're not worried about, if I set down my 7018 rod, is it going to start melting the bridge that I'm standing on? So those are kind of nice options to have. These machines are commonly used by like pipeline welders who might have one mounted in the bed of their truck or in place of the bed of their truck so they could get out to a location. So the military kind of saw how well that worked. So now we kind of do our own thing. We have a trailer. This chassis is designed specifically to hold this guy right here. It's kind of the heart of this entire operation. It's the generator and the welder. So I'm not going to start it up right away because it's relatively loud. I'll start it up when we get ready to weld. But if I plug this in right now, my oven would be on and I'd have the option to turn on these two work lights, which are handy for working back on this area, okay? So I'm gonna grab some 7018 rod. This oven's cold. And then 7018 rod is electrode positive, right? So I'm gonna look at what I have going on here, and my work piece is, in fact, my work lead is ground. Okay. So I'm gonna plug in positive over here. Plug in positive over here. Pull out some off this spool. Okay. And then I'm gonna plug in an electrode holder. And these are twist lock connectors, really nice. Now that my electrode holder's plugged in, I'm gonna worry about my ground. Okay, I've undone some wire here. Now, one other nice feature of this trailer is this back jack can act as your entire ground. So if I wanted to, I could ground right there and work on a piece of metal over here. So now I'm going to ground right to the workpiece as well as the table, okay? So the other thing you have to worry about is, well, now I've grounded the entire back half of my trailer. If I set down my work, if I set down my 7018, it's gonna continue to arc. So that's why sometimes it would be smarter to work with just your workpiece grounded. That way you could kind of use this as a work area to set things down and rest. So we could work on the table, say to my left, or we could work off on a piece of equipment, not right off the trailer. So PPE is important. I am wearing an apron. They're not just for cooking anymore, because here we're cooking with gas. So gloves, sturdy gloves, extremely important. Now usually you'd want to wear, if you're wearing, military uniforms are pretty fire resistant. I say pretty because they're not exactly 100% fire resistant, but they are, for this demonstration, good enough. Okay, this apron right here is extremely fire resistant. If you've ever burned one of these awesome green treated cotton suits, they stink really, really bad. Gloves, sturdy, actual hide gloves are very, very important for stick welding. MIG welding, you'll see a lot of guys will go with like the the lighter weight, maybe buckskin gloves, stuff like that. And they may get away with that MIG welding, but with stick welding, your hands, your forearms are gonna be very close to the arc. Now, stick welding does produce UV radiation, so it will give you a sunburn if you have exposed skin. So it's crucial that you don't weld in a t-shirt. Done that, it's a bad time. Haven't done it in the Army. The Army will give you all the tools you need, all the training you need to know how to do the job correctly, which is awesome. So you could come into the Army not knowing how to weld, and when you get here, You know, especially if you go through 91 Echo training, you'll come out with not only certifications, but with the know-how, how to TIG weld, how to MIG weld, how to stick weld, and how to do it safely, okay? That's the big thing. So I'm gonna get on to laying a bead on this piece of scrap steel that I picked up so I can show you how awesome this welder is. Now this is 7018 Excalibur HR4. I believe it's sold by Lincoln Electric. Okay. And I've shut the welder off, so it's safe for me to set my electrode holder back down on my work area. Now, the big reveal, right? You see on the weld, 7018 deposits a nice little slag, right? That slag is deposited from the flux, which is on the outside of the rod, right? It does that during the weld to protect it from the oxygen in the atmosphere, basically so that the molten metal, as it freezes back into metal, does not corrode quickly, because as you all know, red hot iron tends to corrode extremely fast. So to chip this weld, I'm going to put my mask back down, and I'm going to chip this weld. I'm going to give it a quick hit with a wire brush. Here you can see a nice buttery smooth weld from the Trailblazer 302. This welder welds exceptionally smooth. My first time welding with the diesel generator welder, it took some getting used to because arc starting can be a bit finicky depending if the RPMs are set high or low. But the machine responds very quickly to the demands. So if it's idling and you go ahead and you strike an arc, it'll ramp up very quickly and you'll be right into that buttery smooth welding. And if you're a welder, you know what I'm talking about, that buttery smooth, just laying a bead in, nothing like it. I love it. And I get to do it all the time with the Vermont National Guard.